Oh, think twice, because it's another day for you and me in paradise. Or it's a better way of life with me and Marianne on Friday morning. How are you?
I'm okay, I think. I just got a lot going on at the moment. But we were just talking, I was talking about tax returns.
Mm,
Given what we're going to talk about today and the struggles that we have, it was just yet another roadblock because I couldn't get in to be able to even. So I was all set up, ready to go. Yeah, I've got everything, and I couldn't get in. So it's just derailed me now because I can't. I've got to wait for something else and then wait for something else, and it's
of
just
course, we're
that whole
talking
lot
about the
again.
wonderful gateway that is the government gateway here, which I myself used the other day for something, and it decided that it didn't know me enough, even though it has two-factor authentication and a PIN and all of that sort of thing, and it wanted to have my passport details and my driving license details. So I then had to hurriedly. I knew where my passport was. I wasn't quite sure where my driving license was at that point, so I then had to stop everything midway through and run and find my driving license, and then I hoped that I'd type the number from my driving license in. And I had a talk with a client later in the day, and I said, "B, this must be incredibly difficult for anyone with something like dyslexia. You know, they've got to type all these numbers in correctly in the right order in order to get in, and it just seems to me that." All of these access points, which are meant to be getting easier to use, are getting harder and harder and harder to use. But there you go. Maybe
I
that's
know I know for me, it's every time I come to do something, in my head, I think, right, okay, I'm going to record where, like, and then you're not supposed to record things because for safety reasons. And it's just every time I'm asked for a password for something or a code for something, I get this overwhelming feeling of dread come over me. And if I do manage to do it right, I do a happy dance and I want to tell everybody that I managed to do it right. It's just constantly, it's all these things you've got to be able to log into, which is absolutely great for people that it's great for. But when it's not, it just is truly, it just derails you constantly. It's like roadblocks constantly when you just think, I can get on and do the thing. I can't get on and do the thing until I've got into the thing. And that usually is the problem. And that's enough, usually, for somebody that's neurodiverse to just check out of the whole thing and go, I'll do it later.
well. I think we at this stage we ought to bring our guest in, who is Emma Craven today, to join in the conversation because I'm sure she'll have something to say about all of this. So let's welcome the wonderful Emma. Hello.
Hello. Hello, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Emma. In a minute, I'll ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, etc. But just joining in this conversation, systems kind of, getting more and more complicated when they're meant to be getting more and more easy. It's a bit of a like a mind blow, really, isn't it, for a lot of us out there in terms of how we get into stuff and what passwords we need to remember, whatever. Do you suffer with that?
Yes, very much so. I often am completely and utterly stressed if I can't log into something, or if I can't remember the password, or if something just doesn't work in the way that it's meant to, or if it's been updated and it looks different, then that just sends me into a complete meltdown of overwhelming stress. So, yeah.
There you go.
So I remember,
Do you know what?
Graham had me on the phone one day when I went onto a new phone. I mean, going onto a new phone, I'll put it off and put it off and put it off to the point that the phone then breaks, and then I automatically almost lose everything on it. And I phoned Graham one day and I said, "Can you help me, please?" Because he works for me. He's got some passwords of mine and stuff, and we can get into things. And I just phoned up in tears because I was so overwhelmed. Which people are like, "Marianne, come on, you're a professional." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but these are the things that will tip me literally right over the edge."
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Awful.
I don't know whether either of you two have seen that show on the TV where it's about scammers, and there's a team. Yeah, Emma's nodding, right? There's a team in a studio and they're listening into scammers trying to scam people on the telephone. Yeah. And they try and intercept before the scammer, you know, does all of the naughty stuff and whatever. Personally, I think what we need is kind of good scammers, but for people who are neurodiverse or struggle with cognition or whatever else, right? When they're trying to get into systems, right? Who go, you're trying to get into the system. You're not, I can see that that's not working for you. So I'm going to help you now. Right. I can see what's going on the screen. Good. What you need to do is you need to put your password in there. I mean, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? Right. Because here's the rub with all of these things. When it all goes wrong with these systems, where's the help? It's like you said this morning, you log a complaint and say, oh, I can't access whatever. It says, well, we'll get back to you in 2 days. And it's just like, no, I need the help now. I want to get in this system.
That's just complete. I mean, if it wasn't enough, I've constantly had emails telling me that I need to hurry up because the deadline's coming. And I'm going, yeah, I know the deadline. The deadline is there. If you want me to do it before, then tell me before. But don't keep threatening me by sending me emails that just send me into more of a panic. And then other people saying, oh, haven't you done your tax return yet? And I go, no, because I said that this is when I'm going to do it. And now I've now asked for help and you're telling me I've got to wait 2 days.
Well, I said that to you the other day. I don't know whether you get this, Emma, but even if you do your tax return at the right time, the wonderful HMRC then continue to bombard you with emails saying, don't forget to do your tax return. Now, for me, that causes me confusion and delay, as AKA Thomas the Tank Engine, because that's what I call it, confusion and delay, because that's what they always used to say, didn't they? The fat controller used to say, oh, you're causing confusion and delay. But that puts me into a panic, because then I'm thinking, well, have I done it? Haven't I done it? I don't know. I thought I did it, because I do it as soon as I need to do it. Like in April, I literally finish the year and then I do it, because then it's done.
For me, the minute everybody keeps saying to me, why have you not done it? Why have you not done it? And I've said, because I've always done it now. So for me to start doing it not now, my head goes, oh my gosh. And then when the more people go on at me, the more guilt I feel and the more shame I feel. And I think, oh God, I'm not saying to you about when you should do yours. So why can't you leave me alone? I'm paying it. What's the problem?
Yeah. I just think some of these help systems that are meant to be helpful need to actually be helpful to people. You know what I mean? As opposed to
neurodivergent friendly, though.
No, they're not. They might have made the text bigger so that it's more, you know, it's easier to read. They might have made the language a little bit clearer so that it's easier to read. But
I think a lot of the things that are supposed to make things accessible for people with disability doesn't. Even if you look at access to work, it actually isn't set up for people that have any kind of neurodiversity. So it's not, because that, you know, the number of times people say, can't you just, and I go, oh yes, what do you mean? I should have just tried a bit harder.
That's a really
I don't think they're set up. They're not set up for, I think, many other disabilities, absolutely, but not when the whole of the issue you have when you are a neurodivergent is the process. It is the whole of that. When that is the issue, those things aren't, because that's the bit that you know, it's easy to put tech in a way, isn't it? It's easy to do a system that helps somebody see it or hear it, but when it is the whole of it that is the problem, the whole parking fine thing that I was dealing with, and I couldn't get across to anybody. I said, I sent the appeal in to you saying I had a disability and that I needed to communicate verbally, and you've just ignored it the whole way through, saying to me it's not your problem. I said, well,
there you go.
You know,
it's similar when I started studying and I applied for DSA, which is Disabled Students Allowance. Now that process is a full-time job, and it is the most stressful thing I think I've probably ever done. And it's very complicated, and you have to fill in so many forms and repeat the same information. And it took me over a year to get not just support for having ADHD, but chronic pain. Like the ergonomic equipment was the most difficult thing that was to get, because I sent the medical evidence in and they wouldn't accept it. They would only accept the ADHD medical report that I sent them. And then I changed suppliers of my specialist study skills and mentor, and then that triggered someone else look at the medical evidence. And this was literally nearly a year later, and they accepted the medical evidence I sent for my physical disabilities nearly a year in. It's just insane.
Oh my word! We need to at this stage, I think, just to give context to all of this. Emma, just tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're Emma Craven. What
Yes.
is it you do, Emma?
I'm not currently working at the moment. In 2019, well, not unfortunately, but I had to stop working because I was diagnosed for about a year with ADHD, and was in the process of getting a diagnosis for fibromyalgia, and my mental health was really bad. So I've not worked since then, but at the end of 2023, I started studying psychology online, only online, because it's just not physically possible for me to get to a university, and I study part-time because I need to obviously manage my physical health and my mental health. And I've been so far diagnosed with ADHD, always depression and anxiety, fibromyalgia, trigeminal neuralgia, which is pain in my face, sciatica, bursitis, and then more recently complex PTSD.
Wow.
So I've got a bit of a range of complex things.
You're the kind of person that I would used to be sent to see, Emma, because you would be what would be called a complex case. So just to explain, I did DSE and DSA assessments for a number of years. So I worked within the DSA. It always annoys me when I hear that it's difficult for people to get access to the support that they need to get. And further on with that, I'm going to ask you some more questions really around that as well. Do you find that once you started to get the support as well, did you find that it was a bit too piecemeal? It wasn't necessarily holistic enough? Did you find that actually you kept having to repeat yourself in terms of the conversation? Did you find that it wasn't necessarily bespoke enough to you in terms of a solution?
God, I could talk about this for hours and hours.
We've got hours.
My initial experience was I'm on my fourth specialist study skills tutor now. I've changed company, and I've had 2 or 3 different assisted tech trainers for the software. And I just think that the amount of times that I've been told that you just need to plan better or plan, or you just need to try harder, or you just need to do they'll send me some links and I'd have to follow the links and work it out myself. And to be perfectly honest, personally, my RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, has been the most debilitating symptom of having ADHD. Yep. And that constant kind of having to battle and having to just fight my corner all the time is just exhausting.
Right.
Exhausting.
I'm going to bring Marianne back in here because I know she's going to love to join in with this part of the argument. One of the things that I'm going to talk about now is that within that sector, within that whole sphere, is that there is not enough decent quality of training. And there is not enough regulation around the differences in terms of professionalism and experience and qualifications between different types of people that are delivering that, right? And that is a major, major problem, right? Because you might get somebody who's had years of experience and has done a number of different qualifications which are completely relevant to what you need and the sector, etc. Or you might get someone that has literally left a corner shop job yesterday and has just stumbled in to the profession and is now out there teaching you. And that is the reality of it. And that's just not good enough. Marianne.
Oh, well, so Emma, I might be able to help you following this. So I did a couple of years ago, I think it was, I was supporting people with their DSA, as in the other side of it, being a mentor or tutor. And can I shut the door? Because the dog's just opened the door. 2 seconds.
Can I just turn the telly off as well? Because I think it might be causing an echo.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I know you're going to edit, so...
No, I'm not. I'm just going to leave it all in because it's beautiful.
This is real.
This is real. This is real. This is life. Dogs need to be sorted out. If you've got a dog in your home and you're listening to this, make sure that they do go out to the toilet occasionally and do make sure that they've got water.
She let herself in. She decided she didn't want to stay.
And beautiful things like that. And you know,
Oh.
if the telly is on, make sure it's off. There we go.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
no, it's fine.
Yeah, so I was a tutor for people that were receiving DSA, like you. So I was taken on. They're absolutely desperate for tutors out there. They can't get enough, which might explain some of the issues that you've had. So I got accepted that I could do it. I've got a teaching qualification, and then they were looking to see who they could match me with. So we're going to match me with somebody that they needed me routinely to go down to Bristol each week, and I said, look, I can't, because of my business. I can't commit, particularly to somebody that's got autism. I can't commit that every week. I can't do that because of my business. So then they gave me somebody who was, I think she was dyslexic, I think suspected ADHD. I think her children had been diagnosed, and she was doing I think it was a primary teaching or something placement. And so she was receiving help more because it was so what they did, they broke down, and Emma, you'll have seen this, they break down how much time you're going to get. So whether it was for mentoring, I think, and study skills. So they said you've got X amount of time for this and X amount of time for that, which was just such a silly way of doing it, because I was like, well, that's not how it works in reality, because actually what I was greeted with was me in a way. When I sort of had to speak to her about, I said, right, okay, I'm not going to ask you what you need, because that's probably a silly question to ask you. I'm going to ask you with the things you find difficult. So they matched me with somebody, I think it was accidentally or incidentally, that was studying to be a teacher, which of course that's what I think it was to do with practice placement or something like that, but it was stuff that I could do with because it was teaching. So I was able to I said to her, can you explain to me some of the difficulties you have? So she was saying, and she said basically what happened was the teachers' strikes had happened, the lecturer strikes. What that had happened, what meant was they didn't have a lot of lectures that happened, lots of stuff happened, and then something happened when they had to hand the assignments in. And she said, I've got 2 or 3 assignments to hand in once, but I can't think about each of them on their own because I keep getting overwhelmed with all of it, which I completely understood. So what I was able to do was to work out what her pain points were, and then to say, right, well, okay, I'm working with you now, and I'm going to set you deadlines. I'm going to set you those deadlines. So I don't want you to bother about the other 2 assignments at all. Forget they even exist right now. So I was able to set with her what she needed to do. But this whole business of separating it into mentoring and study skills was ridiculous, because that's not how it worked. And actually, in the end, we just worked it out between us so that she got the task done. I mean, some of the feedback from some of the teachers was just horrific. And of course, being a teacher myself and a teacher trainer, I just shook my head, because some of it was, so she said, I've had some feedback, and it said they wanted me to develop on such and such further. She said, I've spent all of the Easter holidays and I'm no further forward. And I said, well, no, you won't be, because they didn't set you any tasks. They didn't say specifically what they wanted you to do. So because you've got ADHD, you're going to go round and round in circles every single day, never really knowing whether you've completed it, because they didn't give you a measurable outcome to Anyway, I did work with her, and then I think in the end, I think she'd finished then. But what I will say to you is the other end of it. So they have different companies that you can work for. The issue I had, the whole claiming my money to be paid for what I was doing, I couldn't do it. So I actually ended up not claiming for 1 month, because I couldn't. I said to them, you're sending me these forms through, and I don't really understand what I'm supposed to fill in. I said, you've got 3 different forms you want me to fill in. Can't you just send me a form that I can literally just put my hours in? And then they said, no, it doesn't work like that. So then I gave feedback to them, and I said, you're really not helping me as somebody who, I'm a professional, I'm a teacher, but I can do the job, but I can't claim the money because of the way your system is set up. And in the end, I think that's why I ended up not doing it, because I kept going to and from with them and saying, they said that we've sent you a Word document. And I said, but why can't I just edit the details to put the hours in? You accept it and claim it. Oh, no, we can't do that. You have to come up with your own form. And then I did my own form. And then they said it was wrong. And I thought, oh, I can't do this. Like, I literally, so it's no.
It's really interesting you say that. It's really interesting you say that, because as an assistive technology trainer, you'd have a similar situation where every single, because you'd probably be outsourced to several different companies, and every single company that you'd work for, you'd have different hour sheets. Every different company that you work for, you may have an online system or whatever that you needed to input information into and log into and complete and whatever. So you'd have all of these different systems going on all of the time that you all have to complete. I'd go one little step further. And again, I'd love to hear Emma's view on this, but you mentioned that the on the sort of mentoring and the skill side of things, that they needed to come together. It always fascinated me that none of that tied into the assistive technology training as well. That literally the assistive technology training, so much of the time, was functional. It was literally, this is how you use this bit of software, this is what this button does, this is what this button does, rather than tying it into how that person learns or works or whatever, tying it into what objectives that they need to actually use this stuff for, and focusing on those things and really aligning it together. Because ultimately, you might be sat there and you're being taught every single button or what to press on this piece of software, but actually you only need it to do this because that's what you're working on at the moment. And if you tie it together with what you're actually trying to do and achieve, it makes more sense.
Also, let somebody have a go. For me, if somebody's going to show me how to do something, I then have to say, can you let me do it so that I can actually do it, so that I know that how to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so when I go back in to do it, I'll remember to do it.
Yeah,
which they don't do. They don't do. And it's the same as, we'll just send you a video of how to do it. And I said, yeah, but then if I've got a problem along the way, I can't solve it because you've just showed me like a process sheet. But we all know that you can send somebody a process, but there's probably going to be a glitch. Or like you said, Emma, they show you one way, then they make a change. And then I look at it and go, doesn't look the same as like when I was shown before.
Yeah.
The good thing, one of the main things that I remind people regularly of, when it comes to DSA and the different support you can get, there's the special educational needs. So you're talking about dyslexia, dyscalculia, and then you're talking about, and then the other type is ADHD and autism. But the problem I've had is finding someone that has knowledge of ADHD and doesn't only have knowledge of autism, because, you know, they're very different symptoms. And it's very demoralizing, and it's just really doesn't help when you've got people saying, well, you just need to implement a plan. Well, if I could implement a plan, then I would, but I don't know how to do that. And then, you know, the university as a whole, like higher education, we're all taught in a one size fits all. So it's, yeah, we are making huge progress in support systems within the universities, but, you know, the assisted tech software person I had didn't even know what the symptoms of ADHD were.
And do you know what?
It was the same as autism.
Emma, this is the biggest problem out there, which is that as you go down the food chain in all of this, people know less and less. And what happens is you end up seeing more and more people who only know a little bit, right? And that doesn't work. A, because you get fed up of it, because you're having to repeat your story over and over again and trying to educate people as you go. And B, because there's nothing joined up about it. The same thing is happening in work in terms of support. This is
talked about this the other day, didn't we?
It's the main thing I'm going to bang on about until I'm in the grave, right? This is what is the big problem out there at the moment. It's not that there aren't support systems. It's that those support systems are not joined up, right?
Yeah.
And this comes back to, and we are going to be all educational snobs or qualification snobs today. It comes back down to that. People are not getting qualified enough, because actually the first thing that could really help here is if you have professionals doing those roles that are continuously professionally developing and are prepared to learn more and more, because that way you could actually see less people and those people can help in more ways, right? So I used to get sent to do, sorry.
I was going to say, it's a perfect example though, is, you know, and I know I bang on about this all the time, that it seems as if people will get by the bare minimum amount of being qualified, which isn't just about getting a piece of paper, it's actually about learning how to do something right. Is that actually I know straight off, Emma, I've got a psychology degree, I've got ADHD, suspected autism, and I probably could support you. But if there was more people like me who actually did get qualified, and I know there is a difference between me and other people that call themselves trainers, there is a massive difference. And that difference is that I've been around the block, I have taught, you know, I've taught as a qualified teacher, that I have to do what Ofsted say, we have to work to what their standards are, which I'm not saying that they're perfect or anything, but the fact is, when I hear people, let's just say that say they're trainers and say, I don't need to know how to learn to be a trainer because I know my stuff. And I think, how do you know your stuff for a start? But like I said, I know that I've learned the psychology behind teaching. Yes, I learned it when I did my psychology degree as well. But that's why I know that when I am working with somebody, the difference they will have with working with me than somebody who probably doesn't have autism or ADHD. You can't fully, be matched up with someone fully, but it's got to be somebody that does understand that psychology behind it as well.
Yeah. Emma, do you think it's about people knowing that bit more so that they can signpost? Because that's what I think it's about. I mean, ultimately, nobody can be an expert in everything, right? But when you were talking at the beginning about all of the different conditions that you have and the things that you struggle with, there was none of that I didn't understand, right? And the reason that I understood all of it is because I have done qualifications and courses, etc., in all of those different areas, whether it be ergonomics, musculoskeletal issues, etc., specific learning difficulties, mental health or whatever, right? because I've done all of those, I know what you're talking about. Now, I may not be an absolute expert in all of those areas, but I understand what you're talking about. And I would also understand, because I'd have that knowledge as well, who are more expert in each of those areas as well. So if I needed to, I'd know how to signpost you to better support. Do you think that's the problem?
I think I'm just going to be maybe a little bit controversial on this Friday morning or afternoon, whichever one we're at the moment. I often see a lot of conversations around the medical model and the social model of disability / neurodivergence, or being neurodivergent. And I think because more and more adults are being diagnosed with ADHD later in life at the moment, I know there's massive long waiting lists and stuff, but what I found is that ADHD is the least supported learning difference, which is how I choose to say that I learn in a very different way to other people, because I'm very visual. I like to listen to things on audio. And I think that I personally feel that I will respond better to somebody that has ADHD if I'm being supported in a personal way. And this is because I talk in ADHD, I think in ADHD, I write in ADHD, and I understand things in ADHD. And this is the thing that no one without ADHD, I'm not saying they can't understand it, but they don't understand the internal dialogue, the stress, like the criticism when you're told repeatedly, you just need to try harder, or you just need to put more effort in. Nobody in the world is going to put, well, actually, now me and Marianne probably are quite similar, because, you know, the amount of hard work that I have to put in just to get my studies done, and the time and the effort that goes into it is exhausting. But it's like you're teaching me in a neurotypical way, and I'm a neurodivergent student, and it's just trying to get almost like the way that I learn. I need to, since I started studying, I've actually had to almost learn my learning style, and then I need to be practically shown if it's tech or if it's even sentence structure. And I'm not talking about subject specific, but I actually need somebody, an academic skills tutor, to show me how to do something, record it, and then I'll go away, watch the recording, and I have to try do the thing repetitively over and over again. And then, because my brain just, my memory is, it just doesn't, it'll be like 2 or 3 months after I've submitted, and I'll start understanding what I was learning.
Yeah.
But trying to get someone.
Can I just say, though, that what I find interesting, as somebody that wasn't diagnosed till later in life, studied all the way through school, did a psychology degree, and wondered most of the time what the heck was going on, and did I walk in late? So like when you said it's about 2 months down the line, the penny drops, and I think, oh, I got that. What I realised when I started teaching people how to teach was that it wasn't me. It wasn't actually me. It was the way that I was being taught. And the minute that happened, when that penny dropped for me, that's when I started doing the teacher training, that actually that's why I hate saying this, because it sounds like I'm praising myself, and I'm not very good with that. The feedback I get from people is that the way that I teach was the game changer for them, because I actually, like you said, Em, it's almost like you feel that shame. I need it said like this, almost like that's a really embarrassing thing. And so whenever people come in that room with me, I'm like, look, all of us are different. It doesn't matter whatever you need, if that's what you need. And so, and the other thing is that somebody just this morning said, aren't we all neurodivergent like that? Which kind of just gets my back up a bit slightly, because if we are all, let's just say if we are all, because that's what people often say, don't they? Everybody's that. And I'm like, well, if everybody is, why are we not being taught? Why are children not being taught in that way? If it is because we are all that way, and actually, truth be told, I think that a large chunk of people are. I think some of that's a change in society. I think it's the fact we've got tech, all these kind of things. So actually, if we taught in a way that did benefit those that are people who are neurodivergent, that actually everybody would benefit from it. So actually, Emma, you're not pain. I'm not pain. Graham, you suspect you are not pain, but you
suspect I'm a pain every day. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. But actually, no, we're only a pain to people because we're asking them to do something that doesn't fit what they're doing. But actually, if there's that many of us, and we're either everything needs to change to fit what people need.
No, I'll tell you why you're a pain. No, I'll tell you why you're a pain to people who don't understand. It's not because you're asking them to do something different or do something in a different way. It's that they don't understand what is different about it, or they don't understand the rationale of it.
Yeah, I think, as you say, if anybody understands, like I'll say to you sometimes, and you get it completely, I'll say, it feels like I feel like I'm in a snow globe or something. And I can't, and you straight away get it. When I say I feel like I'm in a snow globe, it's because everything else is going on and I'm going, or like when I put my post on LinkedIn and I said, I feel like I want to rinse my brain out and just like I'm an insect week, which is the best way I can explain it, which is just constantly, I feel like everything's out of control. And I'm just like, if I could just stop everything for a minute and I could just wash everything out in here and then just start afresh, I'd be all right. But of course, it doesn't actually work that way. So, I mean, you don't understand. I feel like I'm always...
Emma, do you think the main thing here is people just don't understand the pain? They really don't understand the pain, right? It's like, it's those moments where someone's teaching you how to do something on a computer screen or whatever, and it's like, you hear that, you hear the huff or whatever. It's like, can we just do that again? It's now, and then they slow everything down. It's like, so if we start there, and then they start talking to you like a child, and we press that button there, and what they don't understand is what's going on in your head at that point. That's the bit they don't understand. Now, it's not their fault that they don't understand that and what's going on in your head, because if they're neurotypical and you're not, they're not gonna think the same way as you. The problem is, they're assuming that the way that they think is the same way that you think, and the way that you feel is the same way that they feel. That's a big thing, right? You all know that, you know, my big thing is assumptions. Stop assuming, folks. It's so much easier when you stop assuming, right? Ask people. So they assume that that's what's going on, right? And they also keep reverting back to, oh, but that's the way that I've been taught to, or that's the way that it's always been done, rather than throwing that out the window and going, actually, what's going to work here for this person that's in front of me now, right? And when you do that, I hate to tell you this, folks, but it means that every single lesson that you do, every single time you do something or whatever else, you might have key factors that you hang on to every single time, because you must keep those learning objectives and those learning aims in place and whatever. But it's going to be different every single time for everybody that you do it for. And do you know what? That's fine.
It's not actually any more difficult. It isn't.
Of course it's not.
It literally isn't. Like I said to you earlier, I could have 12 people in a room, and the feedback I get is, it was amazing how you just managed to juggle everybody's needs in that room. And I said, but by opening that dialogue and being open about the fact that, you know, I've struggled in the past, that we are all different. And, you know, I'll put that out there. And I say to people, yes, I care if you've got a disability, but also, I also don't care if you have or haven't or whatever, because actually every one of you, every person in that room counts, whether it's because somebody wants to sit by the door because they feel threatened, or they don't want to sit by the door. All of those things matter. And that's the key to, if I get people that have been training a long time, because I go into all the psychology, that's the bit that they walk away and they go, you've just taught me stuff I hadn't even thought about. So all these people that are trotting around, I'm sure they're very good. Their knowledge about training is good. I'm sure they interact well. But the absolute key difference will be, did you consider this? Did you consider that? And a lot of them will say, I never even considered it. They didn't even consider that.
I'd say at that point, actually, their knowledge of training isn't that very good at all. Emma.
Well, it's not. Yeah.
Let you have another word in there. That this is resonating. I can see it is.
Several things you've just said, like, you know, being late diagnosed woman with ADHD who had no idea I had it until someone very kindly pointed that out to me when I was 42. Thankfully, I was rapidly diagnosed, but the negative reinforcement from pretty much anyone and everyone, friends, family, you know, being raised by a narcissistic mother and having a brother that's narcissistic, and just being like never having a voice or always being told that the way that I did things were wrong, being bullied at school, being bullied as an adult at work, it kind of all ends up to be like a really negative internal voice where you just go into that negativity so quickly, and no one knows that you've even gone into that frame of mind because they don't even understand. Like I literally am like an expert in body language, and you don't even have, it could only just be a raise of the eyebrows or something, and then that's it. I'm like, oh well, you know, it's me, I'm stupid, I'm ashamed of I can't do this, I don't know what I'm doing. And all of that really negative kind of self-talk does come back in, but I think it's getting better the more that I talk about it, because it doesn't happen all the time now. It just comes every now and again, and I do have days where it's triggered.
I was going to say, Emma, can I just ask you, largely because something resonated for me there where you said about the negativity. So we were diagnosed about the same time and about the same age as well, actually, and probably before it all exploded. When you said about the negativity and what's happening there?
I don't know where Graham's gone. I can only see you, Marianne.
No, I can't see anything.
Oh, here he is. He's back.
Yeah, when you
I just put you into solo mode, but that's a great example, right? See, what I did there, folks, was I put Marianne on the screen on her own, which is something you can do in the studio. But that's a very, very typical example of the ADHD brain, reacting, which is that, oh, something's gone wrong, right? You know, well, it hadn't. I'd done something, but I hadn't told you I was going to do it, you see. So I was just demonstrating. But there we go.
So
apologies,
when you said about the negativity bit, it's funny because when I look at the old me and the new me kind of thing, because I refer to it as that, for me, the day I was diagnosed was the day that everything started making sense, and I actually had an awakening, really, and I started appreciating me. And so I was always me, but now I'm better, because I think we're always improving. So I feel like I used to be a real negative Nelly, like literally everything I used to see as negative. I said to Graham this morning that I would, so when I hear people talk about triggers all the time, I say that people should look at why they're being triggered, because I know that when I'm triggered by something, I now look at the trigger. I don't blame the person for triggering me. I have to deal with that. So I would be really negative to people. I was jealous of people. I was envious. But the minute I took that diagnosis and sort of understood my brain, probably the same way that you would be, which isn't surprising, you're studying psychology, I took it as not an excuse. I took it as a way to understand and be a better me. So I ditched loads of people in my life. I ditched all the people that didn't bring out the best version of me. So I changed my audience. If you didn't like me, go and watch another show, because I'm absolutely fine with that. I changed some of my cast members as well. So I ditched my brother, or he ditched me. And that was great. It feels like, as you're saying, that you're pretty much like me with this, that I now feel so much happier because I just get me. And if other people don't, I'm like, well, don't then. Just go away. If you're not willing to take that time, don't.
Yeah, I mean, last year, yeah, last year I think, like I one after I was diagnosed, I read a lot about having ADHD, and then obviously I had other health things to kind of focus on and get diagnosed with. So the ADHD almost took a little bit of a back step. Like, I put it to one side for a little while because the physical pain and stuff that I was experiencing at the time was, I had to try and sort that out. And that's another story for another day that I could talk for hours about. But I think once I started studying, like the lead up to studying, I read so much, and since I've started studying, I've read so much more. And I think last year, one of the best things I did through strength-based coaching was focus on my strengths rather than my challenges or my barriers. And I've just become a bit of a pain, I think, to anyone and everyone at the university, because I just bang on about this stuff all the time. And it's like I have quite a unique way of explaining things, but also I'm always very solution focused, so I don't necessarily see a barrier or a challenge. I can immediately tell you the solution, and it's quite unique. You know, we're all unique. It's not necessarily just an ADHD thing, but for me, it is quite unique because I spent 20 plus years working in different jobs advocating for vulnerable people in the community. And so I'm particularly good at fighting for injustices, which is an ADHD thing, but I didn't know it before I was diagnosed. So there's skills that I've got that need to be nurtured, and I need to acknowledge them more. And then since I've started thinking, well, I'm always very honest, I'm funny, I'm trying to think, I love learning, you know, there's all these positive things about me. And since then, the internal negative reinforcement voice has gone, and just by being able to talk things through and actually be listened to, like my university, everyone knows who Emma is, they all know who I am, and it's really pleasant and really delightful to have a positive reputation for the first time in 49 years.
That resonates so much. It honestly,
they listen.
I found that I liked me, but I didn't like me. And so now, by putting myself around the people that bring out the best version in me, I don't feel embarrassed of the person that I am now. I actually love that person. It really resonated with what you just said then. Because actually, if you don't put yourself around people that are ever going to look for the best in you, you're never gonna feel the best, are you? So now I literally feel so much happier, and people like that, don't they? People like people that are happy. And so now if I don't put myself around people I don't really like, I think, well, that's a few people out the way that I don't have to bother with, because I don't really like them and they don't like me much. But I think this is why if you look at people that work in caring professions, that do it well, I definitely believe that something I'm sort of accepting now, I think, is that the reason I do what I do well and the feedback I get from people is because I have got ADHD, and of the way that I absolutely appreciate the difficulties people have. So when people come to me and they study with me, they go, oh God, I'm going to be a nightmare, I'm this and that. I'm like, no, you're not. And so people feel safe with me. When they learn with me, they feel really safe. That often people that are very resilient to wanting to study, they'll say, but I don't want to study because I'm not academic. And I've said, is being academic. It's you haven't found the right help. No, I studied, I failed 2 A levels and I hated every second of my degree. And now I teach that subject because I actually love the subject. I just was taught by people that didn't get me. That's where it was.
Quite literally gone from being told I talk too much, I'm too loud, I'm too in your face, I'm too oversensitive, I'm too noisy, too intense, to everything, and taking that all on board, and that I'm thick as well. which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. And so when I started my degree, I felt very inadequate. But since then, I've literally turned like it into my partner calls them side hustles. So I am a voice, one voice for students like me, not just neurodivergent or have ADHD or autism, but physically disabled students as well. And I just talk a lot, and it's like I call it my unmasking. And last year I started it in October, like just focusing on, you know, what my top 5 strengths were. I've just literally I don't mask, because I faced a lot of stigma, discrimination from other students as well. The minute that I mentioned I had ADHD, I was ghosted, and they just didn't want to talk to me. And I've now made some really beautiful connections with other women like me. But it's just that unconditional love and understanding. And it's just, I do care, but then I don't care. I'm just me. Yeah. And I'm not me because I've got ADHD. I'm just me because I'm me. And just really kind of owning that, and then connecting with women, or women that love you unconditionally, regardless of whether you're very chaotic and you're all over the place and you're late for everything, and you know you're funny and very honest, and you tell 50 million stories, and you can't just give a simple yes or no answer, because you need to tell everyone your life story before you answer the question. Then you forget what the question is, and you have to ask them, what did you ask me again, please? Like, and this is just I'm just me, and I'm just going to be me.
Yeah, but a friend of mine referred to it as we're not pick and mix. My friend referred to it as she's a very strong Jamaican woman. She was one of my best friends when I was younger. She's like a sister. And she said, now if people criticize me for anything, I'll say to them, I'm not pick and mix. You don't pick the bits you like and ditch the bits you don't. You either take me for all that I am. And I thought that was such a good way of looking at it. And I think, Emma, when we spoke on the webinar we did the other day, now if anybody, they don't dare now do it, but if anybody said to me, you talk too much, I said, I wasn't aware that you gave me a word count. You're too sensitive. I say, well, actually, maybe I thought you were a bit insensitive, but I was too polite to tell you. Have it back. Literally have it back, because have it back.
This is a really interesting point. This podcast goes out on various platforms and across the world as well. And I've never told Marianne this, but I've had some feedback from some people in America where they've gone, you often have guests on this particular podcast. You often have guests on this podcast, and that other host that you've got as well. And they talk. They really, really talk, and they just carry on talking. And I don't mean they listen. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. That's what people with ADHD are like, right? And do you know what? The problem is out there is that what you've got a very, very saccharine version of people with ADHD who are presented to the public, who have been trained or are trained in doing media, etc., or don't have a problem with presenting themselves in a way that would be deemed as normal. And so therefore we see this version of people with ADHD which isn't actually real, right? I work with people like Marianne and other people with ADHD on a day-to-day basis, right? And I know all of us can go on a bit, whatever. Do you know what's really great about this podcast? And this is what I say back to them, is what's really great about this podcast is this is real. And actually, then you can educate those people and they go, oh, do you know what? That is quite refreshing, isn't it? Yeah.
I was just saying on there that recently someone said to me, yes, you do talk lots, but you know what? You don't miss anything that I say. You don't miss anything I say. And I said, no, I don't. I said, because actually, whilst I'm talking, I'm creating. So when I'm teaching, I'm creating an environment that people feel safe to be able to open up. And and I think, Emma, you'd have seen it, that I know that if I'm quiet, people say you're quiet. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't win. One
This is
minute you
what
say
I'm
I'm
saying,
talking
though.
too much.
This is what I'm saying, though. People will, but some people will look at this and the way that this is structured and whatever, and they go, this is chaotic. The conversation's chaotic. People are talking too much, or they're not listening, and you're talking across each other and whatever. And I say, who cares, right? Because this is real, all right? And the thing is that people need to be seeing real versions of what people are like as well out there, right? There is too much of this kind of, glamorized version of ADHD, or glamorized version of dyslexia, or glamorized version of someone with a particular problem out there. And actually, that's not how it is for everybody. And they go, oh, but I've had a hard day today, even though I was paid £10,000 to appear at this ADHD conference where I gave this great TED talk and whatever else. And
I don't have ADHD, so I just got paid the money to talk about it, but I don't have it. Completely interrupted them, but sorry.
I mean, Graham, you know how many times, I phoned you the other day and I said, I can't get on with anything. And you were like, why? And I said, because there's this parking thing that's jamming my head, which means I can't do this and I can't do that. I started doing housework and now I can't do anything. And I sat and I just said, my brain's jammed now, and I burst into tears.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm a woman with a business. I'm very, very capable, but literally a few things will derail me. And then I'm in tears to Graham on the phone.
And it would go back to that conversation you and I had first thing this morning, where someone would go up to you and go, you need to change your mindset.
Yeah.
I know. Look at Emma's face. Look at Emma's face. How often have you heard that? You just need to change your mindset.
But it's coaches, these people that are coaches that as well apparently are coaches that are supposed to be working with people with ADHD. So some of them are, some of them aren't. They say about changing your mindset. And as soon as they say that, I say, look, don't even bother, because you're not even getting to know me and my situation. Aside from any of my ADHD, are you actually looking at my situation? You can't change someone's brain, folks. You can't
change the way that someone's made. You can't change the way that someone's built. If it's the way that they are.
It's so frustrating, though.
It is.
Just to have that constant criticism, and it's normally from neurotypical people, or people that have done a little bit of awareness training on what it is like. And a lot of the stuff, and I've tried and tested this actually, is Googled the symptoms for ADHD, and most of it is negative. None of it is actual positive things that we have to offer. It's all very, very negative. So,
it's
the
interesting,
word
actually.
deficit disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say we went to a 3-week course for our youngest is diagnosed ADHD and autism, and the first thing we started with was, we really need to come up with a better term for this, because the whole term ADHD is really quite negative. We need to call it something else. We're out of time, but as you know, folks, I'd like to get rid of all labels and call everybody messy, because that's great, because we're all messy. If we all started saying, well, I'm messy, I do this wrong and I do that right, and I'm good at that, but I'm rubbish at that, and whatever. If we were more honest about, everything that we're good and bad about and whatever, and if we communicated those things to people, etc., and we listened to other people when they were telling us what they're good and bad at, we wouldn't have any of these problems. And yet what we have to do is we end up sticking labels on people and getting it completely wrong anyway. So it's a dreadful case.
Label.
If you want to talk about these sort of things on a regular basis, apart from doing it here on whatever platform you've looked at, you can come and join us in our little community. It's a lovely place where lovely people meet lovely people, and you can feel safe to say whatever you like. It's at abetterwayoflife.co.uk. There's a bit on there about join our club. And there you go. And we're teaching people things in there. We're training people and teaching people things in there, new skills, etc., as well, in bite-sized little chunks, because that's the way we roll. It's only £10 a month, and it's probably the best £10 you will ever spend. We will be back same time, same place next week. Thank you so much to our guest, Emma, for coming on today. If anything we've talked about has resonated with you, then please do get in touch. We'd love to hear your comments and views. Until next week, bye for now.